You're scrolling TikTok, complaining about your Wi-Fi being slow, while somewhere in Ukraine there's a forest where the trees literally glow in the dark and will kill you in 10 minutes. Yeah, we're talking about radiation today, and trust me, after hearing what it actually does to your body, you'll never look at your microwave the same way again. So here's the thing about radiation that nobody tells you in school. It's not like the movies where you turn into a superhero or instantly melt into green goo. Nah, it's way more twisted than that. It's basically your body's cells having the worst breakup ever. Except instead of crying and eating ice cream, they just stop working and die. Slowly. We're about to count down the 5 most horrifying ways radiation destroys your body, using real cases from Chernobyl, Hiroshima, and some absolutely unhinged medical accidents that make Final Destination look like a Disney movie. April 26th, 1986. Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, Ukraine. At exactly 1:23 a.m., reactor number 4 exploded, releasing more radiation than 400 Hiroshima bombs. What happened next was basically like if Netflix made a horror documentary, except instead of actors, real people volunteered to walk into literal death zones to save millions of lives. These cleanup workers, called liquidators, had no idea they were about to become unwilling test subjects in the most twisted science experiment in human history. And what radiation did to their bodies makes every horror movie you've ever seen look like a Disney Channel original. Number 5. Your hair falls out, but not how you think. Let's start with something that sounds almost manageable. Hair loss. You're probably thinking, okay, so I go bald. Big deal. The Rock makes it work, right? Wrong. So incredibly wrong. Radiation doesn't just make your hair fall out like your dad's receding hairline. It literally murders every single hair follicle on your body from the inside out. We're talking eyebrows, eyelashes, that weird patch on your back you pretend doesn't exist, everything. The Chernobyl liquidators, those absolute legends who went in to clean up the mess, started losing hair within 2 to 3 weeks of exposure. But here's where it gets weird. It didn't fall out gradually like chemo patients. It came out in clumps, like someone was literally pulling handfuls of hair off their heads while they slept. Liquidator Anatoly Zakharov described waking up on day 18 after exposure. His pillow looked like he'd been wrestling with a very angry Persian cat all night, except the cat was radiation, and radiation always wins. But here's where it gets really messed up. Sometimes the hair grows back, but different. Different color, different texture. Zakharov went in with thick brown hair and came out looking like he got a perm from someone who learned hairstyling exclusively from YouTube tutorials. One doctor described it as watching someone's DNA have an identity crisis in real time. Number 4. Your immune system. Basically, rage quits. Your immune system is basically your body's bouncer. It keeps the bad stuff out and makes sure the party doesn't get too crazy. Radiation walks up to this bouncer and says, "I'm the manager now," before systematically executing every security guard in sight. This is called acute radiation syndrome, and it's exactly as fun as it sounds. Your white blood cell count, which should be around 4,000 to 11,000 per microliter, drops to basically 0 within days. For context, that's like having security at a Taylor Swift concert, then firing every single guard right before opening the doors to 50,000 screaming fans. Except the fans are bacteria, and they want you dead. The Hiroshima survivors experienced this within days. They'd start getting infections from literally everything. A paper cut becomes life-threatening, a common cold turns into pneumonia, and don't even think about eating anything that isn't perfectly sterile. Hiroshima survivor Akiko Takakura described feeling like her body had betrayed her. Every tiny scratch became infected. Every surface felt dangerous. It's like living in a world where everything is trying to kill you, except instead of being paranoid, you're actually right. And you thought having a weak immune system during COVID was bad. The really twisted part? Your body keeps trying to make new white blood cells, but radiation has basically broken the factory. It's like trying to bake cookies when someone keeps turning off your oven and stealing your ingredients while you're not looking. Number 3. Your digestive system becomes a horror movie. Remember that scene in Alien where the creature bursts out of the guy's chest? Radiation basically does that to your entire digestive system. Except it's way slower, way more painful, and there's no dramatic music to make it seem cool. High doses of radiation absolutely obliterate the lining of your intestines. We're talking about the cells that help you digest food and absorb nutrients just dying, en masse, like they all got the memo to quit on the same day without giving 2 weeks' notice. The result? Imagine the worst food poisoning you've ever had, multiply it by 100, and then make it last for weeks. We're talking about bloody diarrhea, vomiting blood, and stomach cramps that make childbirth look like a gentle massage. The Chernobyl plant workers who received the highest doses experienced this within hours. Firefighter Vasily Ignatenko described feeling like his insides were on fire and melting at the same time. His wife Ludmila later said he was vomiting so violently that she was afraid he was going to turn himself inside out like a sock in the laundry. But here's the catch-22 from hell. You can't eat or drink anything because your digestive system literally can't process it anymore. It's like having a garbage disposal with no bottom. Except the garbage disposal is your stomach and the garbage is anything you try to consume to stay alive. Medical staff had to feed these patients through IVs because their bodies had basically forgotten how to be bodies. One doctor compared it to trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom while the hole keeps getting bigger. And you complain when your stomach hurts after too much Taco Bell. At least Taco Bell doesn't make your intestinal lining literally fall off in sheets. Number 2. Your skin becomes your enemy. Okay, we've covered hair loss, immune system failure, and digestive destruction. Surely it can't get worse, right? It got worse. Radiation turns your skin, your body's protective barrier, into basically tissue paper soaked in acid. We're talking about radiation burns that make third-degree fire burns look like a mild sunburn. The really twisted thing about radiation burns is that they don't happen immediately. You get exposed, you feel fine, maybe a little tired, then, 2 to 3 weeks later, your skin starts changing. First, it gets red and swollen, like a really bad sunburn. Then, it starts blistering. Then those blisters pop and don't heal. Then, the skin underneath starts dying and peeling off in sheets. One Chernobyl victim's wife described watching her husband's skin literally slide off his body like he was a snake shedding, except snakes don't scream in agony when it happens. The medical staff had to wrap him in bandages that they changed multiple times a day because the dead skin would stick to the fabric. But wait, it gets worse. It always gets worse with radiation. The skin doesn't just die, it becomes incredibly sensitive to everything. Light, air, the gentlest touch, everything becomes torture. Patients had to be kept in dark rooms because even normal room lighting felt like being stabbed with needles. One survivor described feeling like his entire body was covered in open wounds that someone kept pouring salt into. Every breath of air felt like sandpaper against raw flesh. The really horrifying part? Sometimes the skin tries to heal itself, but the radiation has damaged the DNA so badly that it grows back wrong. We're talking about thick, leathery patches that look more like tree bark than human skin. Number 1. Your DNA basically has a mental breakdown. And now we get to the absolute worst part. What radiation does to your DNA. This is where things go from horrifying to existential nightmare fuel. Your DNA is basically your body's instruction manual. It tells every cell how to do its job, when to divide, when to die, how to repair itself. Radiation walks into this library and starts ripping pages out of every book while setting the rest on fire. High doses of radiation cause something called chromosomal aberration, which is science speak for your DNA is now completely screwed. Your cells try to divide, but they can't read the instructions anymore. It's like trying to build IKEA furniture when someone has replaced all the instructions with abstract poetry written in a language that doesn't exist. The result? Your cells either die immediately, or they go completely rogue and start doing whatever they want. This is how you get cancer. Cells that have basically forgotten how to be normal cells and decided to become immortal party crashers instead. But here's the really messed up part. This DNA damage is permanent and hereditary. The Chernobyl cleanup workers didn't just suffer themselves. Their children and grandchildren are still dealing with higher rates of birth defects and cancer decades later. One geneticist described looking at the chromosomes of radiation victims under a microscope as looking at a jigsaw puzzle that someone put in a blender. The DNA was so fragmented and rearranged that it barely looked human anymore. The absolute worst part? Your body keeps trying to fix the damage, but it's like trying to repair a computer with a hammer. Every attempt to heal just makes things worse, creating more mutations and more problems. So, next time you're standing in front of your microwave waiting for your leftover pizza to heat up, just remember, you're literally 3 feet away from a machine that uses the same type of energy that can turn your DNA into abstract art. The crazy part is we use radiation for everything now. Medical X-rays, cancer treatment, food preservation, smoke detectors, it's everywhere. The difference is dosage and exposure time. It's like the difference between having one beer and drinking an entire brewery in 10 minutes. Your phone emits radiation too, but it's about as dangerous as a flashlight compared to what we just talked about. Though honestly, after learning all this, maybe putting that thing next to your head for 8 hours a day isn't the smartest move. Here's the twisted irony that'll keep you up at night. We use radiation to treat cancer, the same disease that radiation causes. It's like fighting fire with fire. Except the fire is invisible, odorless, and can kill you in ways that make medieval torture devices look like massage chairs. The human body is basically a biological miracle that can survive almost anything. Shark attacks, falling from airplanes, eating gas station sushi, except for invisible energy waves that we can't see, smell, or feel until they've already started rewriting our genetic code like a drunk person editing their ex's Wikipedia page. So the next time someone complains about their Wi-Fi being slow, just remember, at least your internet isn't literally melting your DNA while you scroll through TikTok videos about cats wearing tiny hats. Sweet dreams, everyone. Try not to think about all the invisible radiation constantly passing through your body right now. Seriously though, you're fine. Probably. Maybe don't Google background radiation levels at 2 a.m. though. Trust me on that one.